Alright, this will be the first fire with the new ignition switch and with O2 sensors. And I think with the fans also, since I put the rad and fans on. This is the simplified harness from the '05 Suburban to run the electric fans, and it's gonna be, looks like it's gonna be really easy. Power, ground over there, your fans there, and this here is your trigger, so I'll have to trigger it to the temperature sensor or something. That's how I did it on the '87 LT1 Firebird. My priorities right now are fuel, cooling fans, and O2 sensors. So I got the collectors on the exhaust. Last time I worked on it, I put collectors on. So I've got collectors on both sides. They have bungs for the O2 sensors. I've got the O2 sensor wires here, one on each side. That'll be the front upstream O2 sensor for bank 1 and the front upstream sensor for bank 2. I don't have cooling fans yet, but I do have a harness to run them, and I think maybe the fans will work from the '95 Firebird or something like that. These are junkyard O2 sensors. These are the ones I need, I think. I just don't know how good they are because they came from old pipes from the junkyard. But these are the right plugs. These are both GM. I think they're from a 4.3, but they seem to be the same plug-in, the same thing as a 5.3. I was gonna use the fans from the '95 Firebird, so I got the fans in there, sort of temporarily mocked up in the top plate, and I decided to use the rad and everything. The rad, it's a little bit smaller. It's like a 25-inch core instead of 27 or 26 and a half. But I think that's going to give me a little more room around the steering idler and steering box and all that good stuff. The lower hose on the '95 is actually up a little higher, so that should give me a little more clearance around my steering idler, and it's a little bit lower on the top hose, so it's more of a cross flow. I shortened up this top plate a little bit. It's probably not the straightest cut according to the bottom of this line here, so I might trim that a little more straight. It was hanging down here and it didn't quite fit right, so I think that's better there. I'm going to drill some holes in the plastic, not the car, but the plastic wherever the bolt holes might be, like right there. So I'll just drill a hole there in the plastic and put the bolt in. Something like that. I think that's going to work out pretty good. So that lower rad hose is actually up higher. It used to be down there, so I might have to do something about that, but it should give me more clearance here, hopefully. Normally the rad mounts are supposed to go here or here, depending on if it's a V8 or V6. V8 has a bigger rad, but in between there's these bigger holes here. So this rad is smaller than the V8, but it's bigger than the V6. So I thought about offsetting it, this side or that side. This side I'm close to the steering idler, that side I'm close to the steering box. But in the middle there's these big holes, and they line up perfectly with the rad mount. So these are some rad mounts that I made here, but That lines up almost perfect with that big hole, and this big hole here too. So maybe I'll center it, maybe I'll put it in the center. So I'm going to be close to the steering box, but I can probably work with that. Oh, there she is. The mounts lined up perfectly with those bigger holes, so I used that to center it, and the lower mounts, I just stuck them to the rad, and I just let them follow the rad. So they're just cradled down into the bottom of the rad support. The top, it matches up because this top plate is from the 95, so it matches up good. There's no holes here. I thought about doing it, but the bigger hole didn't go all the way down through. There was like a double ply there, so I just drilled them in the factory V6 locations. So there's already keepers here for the V6 shroud. So the V6 rad would have stopped there on both sides. So it's a little bit bigger than the other V6 rad from the 3rd gen. This is the V6 from the 4th gen. 3.8 liter. That's from the 95 Firebird. But I kind of like it. When you center it like this, you get a little bit more room for the lower rad hose and the steering. So it's a little bit, it's not all the way out here like the V8 rad was. It's tucked in a little bit, and the bottom rad hose is a little higher. So that's good, I think. And same with this side, it's moved over a little bit because it's a little smaller than the V8, which gives me just enough room to tuck in some electric fans there. I actually put these fans upside down because there's more room on the steering box when these fans are upside down. So they're upside down right now, but I think that's gonna work. These fans are sort of leaning a little bit because the tabs that hold this fan to this rad, I cut them off because I tried fitting this fan on the V8 rad at first. But this rad's in better condition, and it gives me a little bit more room here and there. So even though I cut off the tabs and flipped it upside down, it still fits pretty good. I just there's no tabs holding it on the top because it's upside down, and there's no tabs on the side because I cut them off. So I'm gonna have to make a new tab on the top to hold it, and it's nested down into the lower rad support, so that'll be okay down there. And it's also nested in between the cores here, so it's not going to go anywhere. So I'll just put a bracket up here somewhere, I guess. And there's quite a bit of room between the pulleys and stuff. Have to fit an air intake in here somewhere, probably that side, I'm not sure. And the hose, this is just sitting here holding the fan from falling. I was monkeying with the wires a little bit earlier, and I was trying to find a place to mount the computer and the fuse block. This is the truck mount for the fuse block. I modified it, chopped some of the stuff off of it, but when I clip the fuse block into it, the fuse block sits way up here, so it's a lot more bulky. So I'll have to figure something out here. Lots of room in this corner, but the wires aren't that long between the computer and the engine. I don't know. Some of this stuff looks like it was made that way, but they didn't make a whole lot of changes over the years as far as the F-body goes. So the 3rd and 4th gen, there's a lot of interchangeable stuff. My drive shaft is from the 95 Firebird, and it bolted right in. The rad pretty much bolted right in, more or less. The hose arrangement is pretty good for the LS. and also for the steering there. It's a lot better there now. That's way better. So yeah, that worked out pretty good. For now, I've got some zip ties on the top. This worked out pretty good. It's bolted down in the factory V6 location. This used to be a V6 car not too long ago. Last fall it had a running V6 in it. Ran like crap, but so the engine's running, the transmission's in, drive shaft's in, shifter's hooked up, rad is in now. Steering shaft is back in, power steering pump is hooked up. So I might make some changes later on, but for now there's not too many things left. Just the fuel is going to be the big thing. I got the fuel pump and lines just hanging here, so I'm going to have to run a new fuel line to the tank. I don't know if I'm going to put the pump in the tank or if I'm going to have a inline fuel pump like this or what, but the next big thing is fuel. I don't have the amber ones yet, but you can get the amber ones too for the LEDs. So I might go with 3 on each side and get the amber ones to replace the factory amber ones. But something like that. Put the collectors on and the O2 sensors. There's a couple of wires there that are kind of close to the exhaust, so I'm gonna have to do something about that. But for now, at least it's not touching, and I want to hear it run. I've never heard it run with O2 sensors, so I'd like to run it with the O2 sensors. I'm working on the fuel system, but I'm still running this temporary setup right now. I got a new braided, I got 10 feet of this braided AN-6 stuff to go from the new sending unit to the front here, but the new sending unit hasn't arrived yet. So the new sending unit is stainless steel, so that'll be nice. I've been working on these fans here. I've got, I had to do some wiring, not much, I just had to cut the plugs off because the plugs were different. I'm using the 95 Firebird fans upside down, so the 4th generation F-body fans, they're upside down. 4th generation 95 Firebird rad and top plate. I got this separate little fuse block and separate little harness that runs the fans, and this these are the trigger wires for the high speed and low speed fans. I put a ground to here and they come on and the fans come on. I might be able to show you that. Okay, it only took me 2 seconds to bolt the ground down. I'm not sure if that's where it's gonna be, but that's where it is right now. So this is how the fans, this is how they sound. That's low speed, and they're both blowing in the right direction. They're both blowing air that way, pulling air through the radiator. And then there's high speed. I don't think I'm going to use high speed like ever. I'm probably just going to run a signal wire to the low speed from a temperature switch, and then when it gets hot enough it'll just run low speed. Low speed runs nice and quiet. Alright, this will be the first fire with the new ignition switch and with O2 sensors. And I think with the fans also, since I put the rad and fans on, well, it's got a different rad, I should say. I'm going to prime the fuel pump. The fuel line always gets air in it when I disconnect the temporary fuel tank. That's way better. Oh my goodness. You hear this friggin' thing from 5 blocks away. It's so obnoxious. It just rattles your chest. Wow. This thing is so ridiculously obnoxious and loud. And if you just stand anywhere near it, it just rattles your bones even when it's idling. I guess that's because the pipes are wide open. I don't know, but it's just crazy. I've been getting a little bit of smoke on the right bank. I'm not sure if it's coming off the new header. It's probably just smoking off the new header, I guess, because that's a new manifold on this side. Everything, I don't see any oil dripping on the exhaust or anything, but there's smoke like just floats around sometimes. That K&N PCV breather that I bought at the swap meet for $5. It fits perfectly on the driver's side on that nipple there on the driver's side valve cover. So I don't know, it just fits. I was going to put it on the front on the passenger side, but it just seems to fit on there, and I don't think it'll fit over here. Well, she sounds like a beast, but I only ran it for maybe a minute, and it's kind of a good thing I shut it off because I changed the rad. This is the 95 Firebird rad. So I changed the rad and I don't think I topped it up with antifreeze. It probably doesn't have hardly any coolant in it at all. So I've run it for short periods before with very low coolant, but now I've got the belt on it and the rad in it and the hoses on it and all that good stuff. So I guess I should put some coolant in it. I'm probably gonna, I like this setup. I like the way how this rad gives you, the 4th gen gives you more room around this steering deal here. And your hose, your bottom hose is actually a little bit higher and further away from the frame rail. I gotta figure out how to mount these LEDs. They do come with brackets, but I'm probably gonna have to build a bracket for those brackets to rest on or to attach to. Put a little bit of coolant in it. Man, it kind of echoes in here now that there's no headliner. Anyway, I'm gonna fire it up once more, I guess, now that there's some coolant in it. Just for something to do, just to hear it run. There we go. I had the ground wire off the fuel pump so I could test the LED lights. I dropped the LED light like, I don't know, 3 times, but it still works.